Are you ready? Because we're going to start this sermon in a dangerous place. We're going to start in the Psalms. To you, O Lord, I lift up my soul. O my God, I put my trust in you. Or in Hebrew, Eleika Adonai Nashi Esa Elohai B'ka Vaktakti. As I mentioned earlier in the service, this is our second sermon in our Epiphany series on ahas. And my aha moment starts here, in this dangerous place, at the beginning of Psalm 25. Now I say dangerous because we're going to dive into some Hebrew translation. In the words of Pastor Nate Preisinger, thank you for not immediately running towards the doors. Eleika Adonai Nashi Esa Elohai B'ka Vaktakti. To you, O Lord, I lift up my nefesh. O my God, I put my trust in you. The Hebrew word nefesh is often translated in English as soul. And while reading the English translation, it makes sense that we would be so trusting in God that we would lift up and hand over our inner being, the mortal core that exists before and after our mortal selves. But there's just one problem with this translation. Nefesh doesn't mean soul. In fact, nefesh is the Hebrew word that is often used for throat. Specifically, nefesh points us to our breathing throat, our sobbing throat, our gulping and groaning throat. Basically, everything that is vital to life, be it food, water, air, moves through your nefesh, making it the very mortal core of your being, without which you would cease to exist. Understanding the nefesh as one's throat or mortal core suddenly paints a picture of vulnerability at the beginning of Psalm 25. Because to lift up one's throat and to leave you vulnerable and exposed. You have to be courageous to lift up your throat. You have to be bold to lift up your throat. You have to have faith to lift up your throat. This is where the disciples in our gospel passage from Luke get caught up. I mean, we have written accounts of them following Jesus, listening to him teach, witnessing him perform miracles, and yet they are so caught up in looking down at themselves and their concerns that they miss what was going on around them. They cry out to Jesus, "Increase our faith." God was there walking among them, and they didn't look up. Eleika Adonai Nashi Esa Elohai B'ka Vaktakti. To you, O Lord, I lift up my throat. And like the disciples, this is where we get caught up. Because it's so easy to look down and look away, to take a passive posture of conformity with the status quo. I mean, all of us literally carry around a cell phone that draws our attention down and away from the world around us. We tell ourselves that we're seeking out community in Facebook groups and online forums, and yet find ourselves trapped in echo chambers that just affirm our preconceived notions and bias. We would rather complain and rant about people behind their backs than to be in open and caring conversation. We take the passive posture of cowering and hiding from the world, but again we hear Eleika Adonai Nashi Esa Elohai B'ka Vaktakti. To you, O Lord, I lift up my throat. Lifting up your throat is an active posture. One might even call it a demanding posture. Instead of looking down, we're looking up saying, "I see you, Lord. My eyes are up. I see my surroundings. I see the injustice and the hurt and the suffering, and I'm angry about what I see in the world around me. I'm not turning away from what I see. I'm looking up, God, actively waiting to see what you, Lord, are going to do about it." Eleika Adonai Nashi Esa Elohai B'ka Vaktakti. Elohai, oh my God, in you I trust. Because here's the beautiful thing. When we lift up our nefesh, our throat, yes, we witness the pain and the suffering. We see the injustice and death. We are forced to live with the sin and the brokenness of the world. But when we lift up our nefesh, when we lift up our throats, we also get to see the beauty and renewal of life that surrounds us. We get to see creativity in creation. We get to see miraculous things that go beyond our wildest imaginations. But most importantly, we actually see and bear witness to God holding us and caring for us and loving us just the way we are. Aleka Adonai Nashi Esa Elohai B'ka Vaktakti. Oh my God, in you I trust. This is the faith we are emboldened with. It's not defined by our cognitive certainty. It's not defined by our acceptance of proper and fancy theological constructs, nor is it defined by any other constraints that we might put on it. It's a gift from God, so that trusting in God, we might stand boldly in the world, so that we might persistently reach out to Jesus, so that we might trust in God's power and authority, so that we might too respond with love and forgiveness, so that we might not be afraid of what tomorrow will bring, so that we might take risks and challenge the status quo, so that we might bring our needs and burdens to Jesus, so that we might fight for justice, so that we can give praise to God. Aleka Adonai Nashi Esa Elohai B'ka Vaktakti. Oh my God, in you I trust. Jesus said, if you had faith, if you had trust the size of a mustard seed, you could say to this tree, be uprooted and planted in the sea, and it would obey you. This is the bold faith that we are invited to step into. A faith so boundless that a tiny seed has tree-moving potential. Stepping into this boundless faith might be weird. It might be uncomfortable. It might even make you frustrated. But again, Aleka Adonai Nashi Esa Elohai B'ka Vaktakti. To you, O Lord, I lift up my throat. Oh my God, I put my trust in you. To live a life of faith is to be bold, to be trusting, to be courageous. In other words, Jesus is asking, are you ready? Because we're going to go somewhere dangerous. Amen.